Okay. Well, I'll call to order the monthly board meeting of the Shell Rock River Watershed District. I do a roll call.
Manager Pastuski,
Here.
Manager DeBoer,
Here.
Manager Belcher,
Here.
Manager Pistorius.
Here. So we have a public hearing to review the Headwater Stream Bank habitat and Shell Rock River Stream Bank restoration. Looks like we got some interested people from Twin Lakes.
Do I stand up or do I just?
Well, this is a public hearing for the stream bank restoration on the Shell Rock River. So if you're here to comment on that, that's what this is for,
Well, when will they comment?
under the public forum, item 5.
So nobody here to talk about the Headwaters? We're gonna continue in a public hearing.
Call it 3 times.
Call it 3 times, and then if there's no comments, then we close the public hearing.
Okay. Anyone here to speak about the Headwaters? Anyone to speak about the Headwaters? Oh, we will close the public hearing. Item number 3, consent agenda, is the following items will be acted upon without discussion. You guys read them all, y'all have them in front of you, right? Someone here to make a motion?
So. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, the staff has no additions, corrections, or deletions at this time.
Here to make a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we're at the public forum.
Okay.
You're up, Norm.
Do you want me to stand up and give it or?
Oh, you can just sit
Okay.
there. I think we're close enough.
As you know, we're concerned about the lower Twin Lake outlet. I was just down and checked on it last night. And the beaver's been busy this summer and it'll take heavy equipment to clean that out. Prior to that, during May, I went down every day. One thing to clean out the barrier, the fish barrier, because the aquatic vegetation would fill up in there. And then it would back the water up. So I clean that out every day. And I also kept the culvert that feeds into there open. My son cleaned it out the first part of May, so we had it going good. And it brought the level of the lake down probably about 6 inches over a month's time. But as time went on, okay, in there, we got a trapper in and he caught one large female beaver. And then the water flowed pretty good for quite a while, but pretty soon they started bringing in sticks and mud and stuff. And I would clean it out as best I could from the shore with a long hook. But by the end of May, why it was to the point where the water, I couldn't do anything anymore. And so I quit going down. Also on Memorial Day, the carp started coming up and they were jumping over the fish barrier. So I took some boards, put them together. On the fish barrier, one side is higher than the other. And they were jumping over the low side. It's about a foot lower. And you could see them swimming around on the up lake side. And after I put this barrier in, boy, was there activity trying to get over that thing. They would jump up and hit against the catwalk that goes across there. You could hear them banging against that. But they weren't getting across. The people in Twin Lakes or in the surrounding area were out with their bows and arrow and they was having fun shooting carp. But after a while, that kind of, they found they couldn't get that way. They must have went somewhere else then. About that time, the the beavers had things plugged up. And it wasn't bothering, the water level wasn't bothering in my field, so I quit going down until last night. And I checked it. And like I say, the beavers have that thing plugged up so bad and backed up with mud. It's gonna take a backhoe or something to get in there and clean that out. And the worst part is they take sticks and go into the culvert. And that is plugged up tight. So it's gonna be a major job to get that cleaned out. That limestone rock or the rock barrier you put across the natural outlet, there is very little water that seeps through that. So all the water that leaves the lake has to go through this culvert. And right now there is nothing going through that. So then, I guess I get the beaver, the carp, and that. It's something that has to be addressed. If we'd had a wet summer, water can't get away, and the lakes would back up. That's all I've got to say about that. Also, I'd like to, that building by the little church lake there, that garage, as it was called, we bought that through the bidding process, and we got a lot of good lumber, usable lumber out of that. So thank you for that. That's the end of my comments.
Thanks, Norm. Just to address some of the comments, we understand that, of course, the beaver are an issue out there. We are or have been in contact with Janine Borland that sits on DNR property. We have a joint powers agreement with them, or is it a joint powers agreement, Scott, or is it a MOU, memorandum of understanding? So memorandum of understanding. So we'll keep working with them to clean it out. We understand that it's going to take probably some bigger equipment to get down there. The one question I do have, Norm, for you is the fields that you're having issues with, are those actually upstream of Lower Twin? And would they be affected if there's beaver dams within that federal ground between upper and lower?
No, this fields have got problem with is on lower. They drain directly into Lower Lake.
Okay,
Virgil and I have joining land there, and they go just Lower Lake is affected there.
okay, and would that be on the west side?
West side, yeah.
Okay. Because one of the other questions I have is, you know, I seen there was some work done over on the west side, and I don't know if it's on Virgil's, but there's a culvert or a drive with a culvert in there. I just think that culvert might be a little undersized for the water that's supposed to come down through there. So I don't know if that's some of the issue. What's hard for us right now is the lake is so low. So it's tough to, one, I understand why the beavers are trying to raise the water because the water is so low. But on the other hand, trying to determine if we're backing up water, it's hard to tell because the water is so low right now. You know, you talk about very little water going out the rock barrier. It's hard to tell because if you look at the stream down from where the barrier is, it's pretty much dry, almost bone dry.
Yes.
And there's not a ton of water. I mean, of course, there's very little elevation there above stream. So, I mean, it looks like there's a lot of water there, but if the water don't have any head pressure to push it down through the barrier, it's not really going to move that much. But we'll definitely, you know, we definitely hear your comments. We're definitely working on the beaver issue. Scott's been down there quite a few times, you know, trying to remove what he can remove as well. But again, we got to work with the DNR to get them down there. If they do not heed our request to get down there and clean it out, you know, we will go down and clean it out and get it done the right way. But again, as far as the water issues, you know, again, right now it's just so low that it's hard for us to tell, you know, really what's going on besides the beaver issues. Because we also believe that between Lower Twin and Upper Twin, there's potentially 2 beaver dams on that federal property between the 2 lakes. So it's possible we'll have to address those. The idea is I need to get out there with the district's drone and fly it to make sure what we're seeing on the aerial photos is actually beaver dams, because those will have to be taken care of too at some point, because they will also impact drainage upstream. So
Question now, that this all of the things you put in to draw down the upper lake. You can't draw the upper lake down until you get the lower lake, the water to go out of there. So that, whatever you spent on that pump and all that business, is really for nothing if you don't let the water out of the lower lake.
yep, and I mean, it's all been engineered. I mean, there is enough fall that when we do, if there's no deep beaver dams inhibiting the flow from upper to lower, we should have enough room in lower with the structures that are in place to be able to pump down upper Twin. Now, again, the process for doing that is only, do that every 10 years or so, whatever. Our lake water quality issues in upper Twin are at the standard where we need to draw it down.
That's what I was wondering, how often or when you would do that, or what the protocol was.
Yep.
To use that.
Yep. But the issue we had last winter, and I know Mick got a few calls on this, is even with as dry as it was, there's something impeding the water between the two because we were getting a lot of backflow.
I had to run back.
Yeah, it would run back to the lake. So we've done two things to fix that issue. One is we've had a new stop log structure built that we will put in place, and that'll only be used when we're pumping. They'll put those boards in so it can't flow back and allow it to go downstream to lower Twin. The second thing with that is, like I said, we need to investigate if there's some beaver dams there, and that's what's ponding that water up and allowing it to also flow back into upper Twin. So it's definitely on our radar. Like I said, Scott goes down there and gives me reports as well. So we're checking it. Probably not weekly, but every 2 weeks. We're going down out there to see what's going on. And yeah, the beavers are definitely a problem and definitely need to get some people out there trapping. So thank you.
Okay.
Virgil,
Well, he said most everything. I've got beaver problems there on my property too. There's a culvert just like the one down my outlet that they've plugged up. And I physically took that out of there. And what I had to do is dig the dirt away on the top of the culvert and cut a hole in the culvert and get a big bar in there. Boy, when they plug up a culvert, it's about impossible to get it out of there. I guess it's a DNR.
protected.
No, well,
That's the next question.
yes and no.
It's a DNR thing that we should be talking to about trapping the beaver, but I got a grandson that would just love to trap, but I don't think we can do that.
To trap on the state ground would need special permission, correct, Scott, from the wildlife, Janine, to trap on their property. If it's your guys' property, I think nuisance wise, whether you call the ditch inspector or probably the conservation officer, you can probably trap on your own property or within that area, just not on the state land unless you have their permission.
So Scott, check on the permission.
I know Scott's asked a few times. I don't know if it's gotten us anywhere yet, but we can push
Not
the,
this spring, last year and during construction, they gave us a permit, but. So no this time.
Well, explain the problems to them.
So it's open, it's not an open season on trapping, but. On DNR ground, if it's impeding water, they'll give out a depredation permit. And that's been kind of tough. I know Janine doesn't want to this time around. First time around, last year, she was more than happy to. This year, it doesn't seem like that's the case, but I'll have to try to see coming out this fall.
But we can push that issue with her too and just say, hey, we're getting complaints and we need to get this done.
Is there a DNR meeting we could attend or someplace where we could talk with DNR people or?
Your best bet is probably calling the regional office in New Ulm and probably talking to the regional director. If you got issues, because he's the one in charge of this region. So then he would call Janine and say, hey, I'm getting these complaints. We need to do something about it.
Somebody get in the correct number.
Yep.
And the name.
So they're easier to trap and shoot. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're pretty smart.
Everybody knows,
From that whole system, of course, from the Shell Rock River all the way up to Upper and Lower Twin. During COVID, my son trapped that whole system pretty hard this last spring. And all totally, he caught 35 beaver and a majority of them came out of that section, 35.
Wow.
Well, they claim that Iowa stocks beaver and then they come upstream.
I don't know about
If
that.
that's an Iowa joke or not.
I know they did that with the otter, and the otter have come out, but I don't think they did that with the beaver, but I can't tell you for sure.
Will otter become a nuisance someday? I've heard bad things about them too.
No, I mean,
They
their
are now.
biggest thing is
fish.
eating fish. I
Going to
mean,
the pond, the private ponds and that they're stocked, and they go in there and they clean it out.
I know there's a bunch of otter around too.
Oh, yeah, I got a lot of them around my place. In the river, Shell Rock River has a lot.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, has there always been a beaver problem down there all the time, or just in the last?
Well, I don't remember years ago having beaver.
I never heard of it either.
I think they've come up from Iowa is what's happened. That's my theory anyway, I guess.
Mhm. So when did you guys start noticing the beaver causing issues? How many years ago?
I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, I imagine, something like that.
And they've gotten worse as they've got up into your,
Oh, yeah.
by your area
And
there.
right up on my property, they cut down a whole bunch of trees and well, they dammed up that one culvert there. We trapped, I think, 3 or 4 of them at one time. Oh, we weren't supposed to.
Told to the people.
Thank you.
yep, thanks.
Okay, that's it.
That's,
Public forum, that's my guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item on the agenda is a legislative update. We're still waiting to hear on the special session here in September, or coming up in here in September. I don't know if no news is good news, but the way it was ran up there, pretty much all summer through the COVID thing, it was pretty shut down, not very transparent, so not sure what's gonna happen there. But we're definitely got our ear to the ground, trying to definitely hope that there's a bonding bill and that we are definitely in that bonding bill. I know Judy keeps regular updates with both Dornick and Representative Bennett. So once she hears something, we'll hear something. So I'll then pass that on to you guys. Item B is the Fountain Lake restoration update. The first thing I want to let you know is staff has put in a $250,000 amendment request to the CWP loan program for the dredging project phase 2. That went in here last week, working with MPCA to amend that from 1 million to 1.25 million. And at a later time, we'll also request another 250,000. But that amendment has been approved. Some other updates on the Fountain Lake restoration plan. Leah, if you could pull up the map for us. I sort of want to just give you guys a rundown of where JF Brennan is at with phase 2. So pretty much, all they have left is north of that peninsula in the green, you can see the green, and the dark blue. The dark blue is the dredge limits, and then just working their way to Bancroft. Again, that's all they have left. More than likely, they will not finish mid-August, like they originally thought. It'll take them a little bit longer. Also where that lighter blue area is there in the middle. And if you take that west, they are running into some harder material, which is gravel and sand. So they're not sure if they'll get down to the dredge limits. As you can see, this is one of our deepest cut areas. All the way through that is about a 11 to 12 foot water depth. So most of that area, they're looking at a 4 to 5 foot cut all the way to Bancroft, the opening of Bancroft Bay in there. So again, that's where they're at. And of course, as you know, we're moving towards bonding, hopefully this year. But as we also requested the bonding for next year to finish phase 3, which would be the rest of the lake east, and then also limited dredging up in Bancroft Bay. So that's where the dredging's at as of right now. They did pull the dredge Fox out of Danes Bay. So Danes Bay is complete. I have been getting a lot of questions why we didn't go further to the southwest there into the mouth of where Schaff Creek dumps in. The reason why we didn't is we're limited by city utilities that go through there. There's city sewer and water that runs through there. So we got as close as we could. And of course, went again as deep as we could, because that's one of those best management areas where we have written into this permit where we can go in with a long reach and dig that out as needed to maintain that depth and to pull that sediment that does get into the lake out. So that is that. I have been in talks with Ramball on the design portion of phase 3. Again, which includes everything from the endpoint there to the Fountain Lake Dam, and then the limited dredging up in Bancroft Creek. I hope sometime, I'm hoping by October, we will have some plan sets that we can bring to you that shows the cut areas and the material volumes that we look at removing through those areas. And then also getting that to the DNR to initiate that permit process, which is a request from them to Representative Bennett. So hopefully we'll have that done here in the next couple of months. And I think that's it for the restoration project. Unless there's any comments from the board on that one.
Mr. Chair, I think, if they're not being able to get the cubic yards in that area, you say it's got the gravel and stuff, where are we gonna make that up then? And also, they said they're gonna be done like this summer early, and now they're not gonna get done? What?
Well, they thought they'd be done mid-August.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna take them a little bit longer. I mean, it's possible that they could be done. The end of August, first part of September. But again, it's all dependent on volumes. When they run into that harder stuff, they don't get the volume per day that they calculate that they want to get. As far as where to pick up that additional cubic yards, I have discussed that with them. Leah, if you can go back to that map. There's sort of two things with that. One is we don't pick it up in phase 2, but we pick it up in phase 3. And that would help us in 2 ways, because it would reduce the volume that we need in the CDFs, which would then hopefully give us more room for phase 3. Or the potential to pick it up would be where Bancroft dumps in right at the beginning, because we know that's pretty soft. Yeah, yep, right in there. That's probably where we would pick it up if we went after the additional yardage, but we don't know what that additional yardage is until they actually dredge those areas. So for instance, Danes Bay, I believe Danes Bay was estimated to remove 78,000 cubic yards out of that bay. Due to the harder material they hit, you see where the green area is, and the lighter blue, they didn't get their full cut in there. So I believe, like I said, original volume to be removed was 78,000. I think they removed roughly 70,000. So 8,000 yards short. So those are some other areas to look at.
If the material is hard, there isn't any point to take it out, is it?
Correct. You know, our permit, what our permit says is to natural bottom. And if, of course, if it's hard and sandy, you would assume that that's more of a natural bottom. So yeah, that's why we've been kind of just, you know, getting what we can in those areas, make sure we got all the soft sediment on it that's containing that phosphorus, and then kind of moving off it. In the BMP areas, though, we did have them try to take as much as they could, just so we can create those deeper holes to excavate sediment that would fill in over time. But yeah, the whole idea, you can sort of see right off of the utility line or the fiber optic line, there's that little green spot right in the up right there. That is a really hard spot, a large gravelly rocky area. And then also down here on the west side of the utility, keep that little green channel, right? Yeah, right through there. One, that is where that abandoned line is that nobody knows what it is, but you can see there's some green over to the shoreline there. That's actually a large area of sand and gravel as well. And the old timers actually tell us that used to be a beach there. And that's why it's some harder material, and it's definitely hard. I know Brennan sat there for a few days trying to pull out as much as they could. So yeah, if it's a sandy or gravelly area, we definitely try to get the material off and then move. So yeah, what's amazing out there is actually once you get through the muck, how much sand and gravel is actually out in that lake. So that's a good thing.
It's good for fish habitat too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So no other questions there. We'll move down to the CDF update. First update I want to give is, again, looking at ways to increase our volumes out at the CDF, existing CDF cells 1, 2, and 3. Again, Brennan estimates, and I'm gonna reiterate, estimates that we'll have, once phase 3 is done, we'll have roughly 200,000 cubic yards of space remaining that we could use for phase 3. Phase 3 estimated total cubic yards we want to remove is roughly 500,000, give or take. So that means we have to find room for an additional 300,000. We have done some initial borings to look at if it's feasible to remove material out of cell 1, which is our biggest cell. The borings did not come back the way I wanted to. We have about a foot to a foot and a half of hard material, and underneath that it's just mush. So that material is not stackable, which is what I was hoping it would be, so that we could actually excavate it out and move it and pile it up. So right now that's not looking good. But I got a call into Ramball looking at other ways to achieve that additional storage. And right now, one of the additional ways is to actually build berm or cell 1 up a little bit. So I got Ramball looking to see what that would take. Because my thought is we could do the project cheaper if we don't have to buy additional ground or exchange additional ground and construct a whole brand new cell. Because we know what constructing CDF cells, 1, the time it takes to do it, and 2, the potential issues you can run into when you're building them. So that's one of my updates. Again, looking at multiple different ways to use our existing infrastructure. I still think it's viable. We just got to find a way to do it. So the last update on that, I'm going to turn it over to Steph and just give you a little bit of an update on the lawsuit with Vite and Ramball and how that's going. So Steph, if you want to.
Thank you, Mr. Henschel. Mr. Chair, Board, quick update on the litigation. When we spoke at the workshop a few weeks ago, we were in the process of getting all of the parties pulled into the lawsuit, and that now has happened and answers have been filed. So if you recall, the initial lawsuit was by Vite, our general contractor, who was building the CDF cells against the district for payment of the additional cost to repair the fixes on the CDF. As the district and you are aware, all along, we've, done our due diligence saying it's not our responsibility. So therefore our answer followed as such, and we pulled in Ramball into the litigation. Since then, there has been counterclaims and third-party complaints, and we have lawsuits going every which way, meaning we point the finger at Vite and Ramball. Ramball points the finger at us and Vite points the finger at Ramball and us. So essentially everyone is suing each other. At this point, the attorneys have all circled and put together a discovery plan. That is the information we are going to exchange back and forth. We're looking at a two-phase discovery approach, meaning in the initial stage, the documents that we're going to exchange are all leading us towards mediation. Right? As we've talked before, this will be a battle of experts. And so as you can imagine, it gets costly really quickly. So where we are at in the process is we've set out the schedule, and if it hasn't been filed with the court, it will be in the next day or two, seeking then that they issue a scheduling order, which will tell us the process as we move forward, which includes initial discovery, including expert reports, and then rebuttal reports. So once they have our expert report, they have the opportunity to respond with their own expert report. We anticipate that that will take quite a while, right? There's a lot of documentation to review, and we have a mediation deadline of March of 2022. If the lawsuit is unable to resolve by March of 2022, then we would circle and set a new discovery plan, which would entail, a much bigger process, to then lay out the roadmap for the rest of litigation and leading us up to trial. So at this point, there will be a lot of work going on in the back scenes in preparation by all parties to mediate in March of next year.
What was the total number again we're looking at?
Total number of repairs that we've been billed for, approximately 1.5 million. Yeah, and additional work on rebuilds for CDF cell 1 and 2. And of course, I'm including in that number, you've already incurred some legal fees and expert fees. So it's a substantial lawsuit. And
How many total people involved? How many parties? Or
three parties, us, Ramball, who's your engineer, and Vite, who is the contractor. And so the basis of the lawsuit, Vite and Ramball, of course, have sued us saying, well, there was extra work done and you didn't pay us. We're standing back saying, no, we've done our due diligence. It's not our fault. You two figure it out. And so, of course, the claims against Vite is you constructed it incorrectly. And the claims against Ramball, to simplify, is you designed it incorrectly.
Here we go.
Here we go. Any other questions?
All right, hearing none, thanks, Steph.
Yep.
I'm gonna move to item D, Country Club property update. Again, working with Jones, Hug and Smith. We met with Jones, Hug and Smith. We're working with them to get an as-built completed for what infrastructure is out at the Country Club property. There seems to be some discrepancies of what the city has shown versus what's out there. And then if what's out there, again, is in proper condition that the city would accept. So we're working with Jones, Hug and Smith to complete that. Again, this will help give whoever's interested in the property knowledge of what's out there. It could be at some point, we ask the city to accept the infrastructure that's out there. So that would actually go in front of the board, or excuse me, the city council to accept what's out there. But again, we got to do our due diligence and prove to them what's out there. So we're working on that. As far as selling it, I keep hearing we have a few interested parties. Again, I don't believe it's for the whole site, it's individual. So at some point, the board might want to, break that up into smaller site or smaller pieces to sell individually. Not as individual lots, but as individual quarters. So we'll probably be talking about that once we get this as-built done by Jones Huggins Smith. Any questions on the country club?
Didn't we have some cameras run through to check out everything?
So if you remember, we did back in 17. If you remember, also, the board did approve to have it done again. We have not done it at this point. Just due to the fact that we wanted to meet with the city to see what the city actually wanted first. We have done that, and that's sort of where we're at in the process of right now. Any other questions? All right, moving to E as an insurance review. I sat down with our insurance agent, went through all of our properties, all of our equipment, make sure everything was up to date. I did make some changes to our insurance. And just to make you aware of what those changes are. One is I increased our deductible. For some reason, our deductible was set at $1,000, which for any municipality or watershed district like us is low. So I moved that to $5,000. Again, if the board has issues with that, talk to me and we can look at changing it. But I think, $5,000 is a pretty standard area as far as deductible. So we had some savings there, roughly about $4,000 in savings. However, I did add a bond limit of $100,000, which increased it by $273. And then I put on there an excess liability limit of $1 million. And that did add roughly $4,725. And let me explain to you a little bit of why I did that. As you know, we've been trying to look at ensuring our CDF cells once Brennan leaves, because then they are our responsibility. However, we have worked for 3 years trying to get the League of Minnesota Cities to insure us for our CDFs in case something catastrophic happened. We had floods and it overtopped and washed out one of the CDFs. However, no matter what we do, how much information we give the League of Minnesota Cities, they keep coming back and saying they won't insure the CDF cells 1, 2, and 3. So that's kind of why I put this increased liability on there, because we won't be able to get coverage for them. So to sort of offset that, if something did happen, we'd have this excess liability of $1 million. So any questions on that, or Steph, do you have anything to add? I know you've been working with me.
Right, and I'll just add, we also tried with your prior underwriter to insure the CDFs and ran into the same issues.
So
So
what's the reason?
ultimately, even though it's an engineered structure, in their mind, it's dirt. And so yeah, you can't insure dirt. So we've been denied multiple times. We've been doing this for, I think the first go around was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, 3.5 years we've been working on it, and we get a little further each time, but the answer is always the same when it comes back. So.
Kind of like digging a ditch, but you don't have responsibility.
Yeah. All right, last item is a motion to approve venue for future board meetings. As you can see, we're all meeting here at the Shell Rock River Watershed District office. I've had a few comments from board managers that with COVID and the technology that the district has and the ability to go live on Facebook, which was one of the reasons why we went to the city hall, because they would tape those and then put those out on the government channel. Which would show them 3 or 4 times a week. However, with us and the capabilities we have now, we can actually go live. So everybody out there right now can watch this meeting, or they can go to the page and watch it at any time they want. So I feel, as an administrator, that we're meeting all of our requirements as far as transparency to the public. So I've asked the board to make a motion to approve the district office as the venue for all future board meetings unless otherwise decided.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Now, this will be zoomed all the time. I mean, every meeting we have will be zoomed. And now can somebody, if one of us is gone, can we get in on the Zoom and vote and all that good stuff or no?
So with the COVID rules at the time, yes, you could. It's a little bit different now that the emergency powers have been lifted. If you know you're not going to be here, but you want to attend through Zoom, you need to let us know prior to advertising for the meeting. And then we have to actually put your location that you will be Zooming in from in that notice. That's how we can make it legal that you would still then be able to vote on the business of the district during that meeting. So you need to let us know beforehand so we can put in the ad notice of your location. So we can't just Zoom every meeting, and if you're not here, have you vote on district business. If we do that, there is a process that we have to go through as far as advertising for it, and then yes, you can.
I suppose they want to make sure that you're not trying to pull something over pre-recorded or.
They just want to make sure it's you. I know it is.
I know. Okay.
It's just, that's how it's set up, Steph, if I explained that correctly to them.
Correct. So it's a public notice. So if we're in multiple locations, again, since the executive orders have been lifted, we have to notice where anyone else would be because the public does have a right to come to the location that you would also be at. Okay. Now, with that being said, that's in order to vote when business has to be done. Let's say it's, you still want to attend, but you didn't find out that you had an issue until after the notice went. You still may attend, you may view it, you just cannot vote if there is a motion.
You can
Or
make
discuss.
comments and interact.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but you just cannot vote. You,
Now, it was an issue with the city that we meet in their facilities in the past. Are they okay with this or do they?
Again, as far as, you know, the whole idea of meeting at the city was to be that transparent portion of it. So it was taped and then the citizens could view it. Which I feel that we are doing, we're probably being even more transparent because we're live during our meeting now. And also they can record it or look at it at any time a citizen wants to off of our Facebook page.
And our website and YouTube.
Okay, when it was noticed, I guess I didn't pay any attention to it. It was noticed in the paper. Does it give the Zoom number and everything else? Or is that gonna happen so that people can zoom in?
No, they just go to the Facebook.
Oh, you still gotta go to Shell Rock
Yep.
Facebook, okay.
So at this time, we're not sending out a Zoom link so that they can join by Zoom. Again, because those executive orders have been lifted, you know, the public can now come in, comment like Norm did, or Mr. Banger did earlier today. So we won't take comments or anything by Zoom. They would still be able to come in. That's why you have to post the location of the meeting.
But you'd have to, there again, you have to be a Facebook person if you want to watch it.
Facebook, YouTube. I mean, you're gonna have to use a computer. Yes.
Well, yeah, okay, but you don't have to be on a Facebook user to view the,
No.
okay.
So if you did a public forum, you'd have to be here
Correct.
for the public.
Or mail your comments the day before the meeting.
Okay. I'm running a little short on time.
Okay.
So read fast, you're saying, when it gets to the resolutions.
Well, I got a meeting that starts at 10 o'clock in Lakeville, so.
Well, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, that's all I have.
All right, well, so
Mr.
we
Chair.
have quorum.
oh, Mr. Chair, you
We
got
need
to
a
call vote.
though. I'm sorry. We need a vote for the,
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Right, thank you. The first item I have is resolution 2021-16 Headwaters Stream Bank Habitat Restoration AMA and the Shell Rock River Stream Bank Restoration WPA plan approval. So last meeting, we kind of talked a little bit about this. You have the final plans that are in front of you. This project is funded with Lassard Sands Outdoor Heritage Council Phase 6 and Phase 7 funding. We are working with the DNR on this project. And so we now have approvable plans. Our goal is, as we approve project plans and establish the project at this board meeting, this afternoon, we plan on putting this project out on Quest. And then we will be looking at September for awarding a contractor to do the work. So if there's a first and a second, I will read the resolution to approve the project plans.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, resolution 2021-16 plan approval, Headwaters Stream Bank Habitat Restoration AMA and Shell Rock River Stream Bank Restoration WPA. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District Board of Managers pursues the mission of implementing reasonable and necessary improvements to the water-related and other natural resources within its boundaries. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District is charged with implementing the Shell Rock River Watershed District Watershed Management Plan. Whereas the project goals and objectives set forth in the plan include improve water quality and clarity in the Shell Rock River, improve and enhance waterfowl habitat, increase fisheries habitat, conserve the topsoil and hold the soil on the land, reduce soil loss to concentrated flow during storm events, reduce sediment delivery to surface waters, control and prevent erosion along shorelands and restore severely damaged shoreline areas, minimize flood damage to property and preserve the function of the floodplain. Whereas the district has 2 projects with parcels located in close proximity to each other, and the overall scope of the work encompasses engineering and construction over the 2 projects for a better cumulative result to accomplish stream bank restoration. Whereas the 2 projects were initiated on January 14th, 2020 by resolution 2020-01 initiating Headwaters Stream Bank Restoration and Shell Rock River Restoration. Whereas the project plan encompasses integrated design plans for improving the water channel and shoreline management for the 2 projects, Headwaters Stream Bank Habitat Restoration and Shell Rock River Stream Bank Restoration. Whereas the Board of Managers, having reviewed the project plan, has determined that approval of the project plan will further the objectives of the plan. Whereas the district has pursued a comprehensive watershed approach to reduce sedimentation and improve water quality, including filter strips, rock inlets, nutrient management systems, water and sediment basin installations, rough fish management practices, installation of fish barrier, septic system inspections, stream bank and ditch restoration projects, and the installation of rain gardens. Therefore, the Board of Managers hereby finds that the project has the potential to promote the public interest and welfare, is practicable, and conforms to the watershed management plan as set forth above. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Shell Rock River Watershed District, Section 1, approves of the project plan dated August 3rd, 2021, as presented by Bar Engineering, and 2, authorizes district staff to conduct work as needed to present this project to the board for final review and public hearing as required by law, dated April 13th, 2021. I forgot to mention that there was going to be some slight changes on the version I read and the next resolution versus the ones you guys have, but
Take a breath.
I was like an
You
infomercial.
almost turned blue.
Anybody can talk that fast and understand it.
Discussion. Call the roll.
Manager Besuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Delger,
Aye.
Manager Pistorius.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item I have is the resolution 2021-17 Headwaters Stream Bank Habitat Restoration and Shell Rock River Stream Bank Restoration Establishment. So again, this is the project that we had previously described, and it is just allowing us to establish the project to place it out for bid. All right, resolution 2021-17 established project 2020-01 Headwaters Stream Bank Habitat Restoration AMA and Shell Rock River Stream Bank Restoration WPA. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District Board of Managers pursues the mission of implementing reasonable and necessary improvements to the water-related and other natural resources within its boundaries. Whereas the Shell Rock River Watershed District is charged with implementing the Shell Rock River Watershed District Watershed Management Plan. Whereas the district has 2 projects with parcels located in close proximity to each other, and the overall scope of the work encompasses engineering and construction over the 2 projects for a better cumulative result to accomplish the stream bank restorations. Whereas the 2 projects were initiated on January 14th, 2020 by resolution 2020-01 initiating Headwaters Stream Bank Restoration and Shell Rock River Restoration. Whereas the project plan encompasses integrated design plans for improving the water channel and shoreline management for both projects, Headwaters Stream Bank Habitat Restoration and Shell Rock River Stream Bank Restoration. Whereas the Board of Managers, having reviewed the project plan and has determined the approval of the project plan will further the objectives of the plan. Whereas the project plan was forwarded to the Board of Water and Soil Resources and Department of Natural Resources for their review and comment. DNR comments were received by letter dated February 23rd, 2021, and Bowser comments were received March 22nd, 2021. Whereas on August 10th, 2021, by resolution 2021-16, the Board of Managers pursues the specifications for the project. Whereas a public hearing was held on August 10th, 2021 to review the project plan. Therefore, the Board of Managers hereby finds that the proposed Headwater Stream Bank habitat restoration and Shell Rock River Stream Bank restoration has the ability to promote the public interest and welfare in conformity with the watershed management plan as set forth above. Now therefore, here it be resolved that the Shell Rock River Watershed District hereby, Section 1 establishes project 2020-01 Headwater Stream Bank habitat restoration and Shell Rock River Stream Bank restoration. Section 2 authorizes district staff to complete the project as set forth in the final project plan, and Section 3 authorizes the district staff to obtain bids, request for approvals, and enter into any other agreements or contracts necessary to complete the project. Dated August 10th, 2021.
Any other discussion? Call roll.
Manager Besuski,
Aye.
Manager DeBoer,
Aye.
Manager Belcher,
Aye.
Manager Pistorius.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last item I have is a J9 outlet project update, and Leah has some pictures that she's gonna share. Fortunately, when we blow them up on the big screen, they're not the greatest resolution, but the first one, this is a project picture that is taken just upstream of where the judicial ditch J9 outlets into Pickerel Lake. So it's a closed tile that opens up into a little waterway, but upstream of where that waterway is, there was some head cutting that's taking place. This picture was taken in 2018 while the gate was still standing. And if Leah goes to the next picture, you will see a picture that was taken in 2020, and the erosion had happened so much that that gate had now fell down and it was getting worse and worse. It was right on a property boundary between two landowners. And so we were working with both landowners to get this project fixed. I will say it was funded by Bowser Targeted Watershed Grant Funding. This project was amended into the work plan just because it's a greater need to get fixed. It's closer to Pickerel Lake. I mean, the soil is going straight into Pickerel Lake from this project, and it was getting worse. So the next picture is what this project looks like now. Andy took the drone out and we were able to see. It looks like a lot of rock and it looks like it's flat, but it is not. It is actually a depression area. It's an engineered practice that has a modified rock weir. And where that little juts out, you can see the culvert right there where J9 outlets. It's that little darker dot, sorry, Leah, right where that curve is. Right there, so that's where the culvert water outlets into J9, and it was head cutting all that way where the rest of the rock is. So we weren't going to be able to fill that voided area in with soil because it's just too hard to do. So we put fabric down, did a rock weir, and then put blankets all around it to be able to prevent erosion from further happening.
So there's a lot of surface water that comes from the west up on top through there as well as what was causing some of the
Yes,
cutting.
so it's very much a lot of surface water that flows in, and there was some tile that was outletting at the bottom of it. There was 3 tile that they tied into and outletted now at the bottom of all of that rock, so it has a stable outlet. That was one portion of the work, and if you go to 4, on the west side of the property, we were also seeing this same situation where it was surface flow was contributing to some pretty nasty erosion. And so we did the same type of practice at the next picture. So this is before. And this picture number 5 is that location after. So again, putting fabric at the bottom, riprap, stabilizing it and blanketing on the top. So it's preventing the erosion from continuing to happen. So again, we thank Bowser and Targeted Watershed Funds because these were erosion practices or erosion that was taking place that was a direct contributor to phosphorus in Pickerel Lake. I will say we worked with the Drainage Authority on the first portion because we had to tie into the J9 to provide a more stable outlet. The county did run into some issues that tile was not, I mean, it was cracked on basically all quarters and was collapsing. And so we had the Drainage Authority go out there and they made the decision to actually replace, going back to the Pheasants Forever property. It was roughly, I think, 312 feet that was replaced by J9. That's not part of our scope of the project. We're not paying for that. The Drainage Authority is, but It's just when they were out there working on it, and we already had a contractor mobilized, the county drainage authority decided to fix that at that time.
That's a big tile. It's,
Yes.
how big is that one?
It was, it is 36-inch upstream, kind of by where it goes into a closed system by the central landscaping.
Livestock farm.
Yeah, because it's flatter there, but when it gets closer to the lake, it turns into a 26-inch. So they replaced it with dual wall non-perf, so that when you have the Pheasants Forever property that's there, and if there's trees growing, that there, there's tile. Trees aren't gonna get into it.
And this is the meeting with which Al was at, so Al could see that
Is that right?
we're working on this stuff. Al's got an issue with J9,
You had
so.
questions that when they were out there.
Yep, yep. But it's nice that the county ditch inspectors seen the issue that, because we actually re-hooked up to just ditch 9, and they seen that past where we're hooking up was bad, so they replaced it. So it was good to.
Yeah, the contractors were sending me pictures. They were, cracked on all quarters and they were collapsing. So it was just like, they couldn't even attach new tile to it without it collapsing. So they just went in and fixed it.
Ted, quick question. We had that first picture of 2018.
Yep.
Why did it take so long to fix it?
Just funding and landowner availability. I will tell you this landowner, I could only contact by letter. So it was just difficult contacting the landowner. Once I was able to contact them, they understood the need, they knew it was getting worse, but that was a large chunk of it.
Yeah, if we have funding in place, usually the biggest issue is working everything out with the landowners.
Yeah, it wasn't that she didn't want it completed, it was just trying to get a hold of her to discuss it.
Do we have any managers reports from Nick or Joe?
None this month?
No, no meetings as far as I'm aware.
Okay, any managers items?
So upcoming meetings, we got the board conservation project tour, August 25th. And then we're still waiting to determine our annual meeting, but again, looking at that late fall deadline, so.
So move.
And Nick, are you both signed?